Howdy howdy, Devil here. In this video, I'm going to do a follow-up on my first video on with respect to fixing the iron breakers, and I want to found this conversation in the mathematics behind how the units should function or are intended to function. So I think that's a good place to start the conversation and to look at how everything operates within the game. Now, the math does break down depending on melee animations and unit size and weight and things like that that aren't so easy to include in the calculations. But this is how I came across the melee animation flaw in the iron breakers, and I thought I would share it with you if you haven't seen my combat analysis video, and really increase the focus on how the unit functions. So we'll go take a look at that now. So this here is a spreadsheet that I've built based on another spreadsheet I found online, and I still got to find who to attribute this spreadsheet to with all the roster data and whatnot. I need to update it, but I haven't gotten around to it. Anyways, this spreadsheet basically takes the values for the melee attack and melee defense and compares your hit ratio to a unit that's up here. So I have Black Orcs up here with all their stats. So I look at in this case, the Iron Breakers melee attack and melee defense. Their hit ratio against the Black Orcs should be 50% according to those statistics, and the damage per successful hit is 11, and their hit ratio against you is 10, and you look at their melee attack's 34, your melee defense is 68, the minimum hit ratio you can have for is 10%, so that's why it's there, and their damage per hit is 31. It should take this unit 1,186 swings to kill the Black Orc unit, and the Black Orc unit 1,923 swings to kill the Iron Breaker unit. And what that gives is a kill ratio, which I have down in this column, which comes out to about 1.62 in this case. And I'm going to just flip to some analysis that I've done in a previous video, and to show where this kind of why I think the Iron Breaker isn't functioning as intended. So if we look here, I did some testing sending in hammers in to fight Black Orcs, and I've got all their stats and costs and everything up there. And using that same calculation, the expected kill ratio for hammers versus Black Orcs is 1.47. Now when I did the testing, it never works out quite right because units rout before they don't all fight to the death, etc., etc. I think that the expected rate, the actual kill ratio would be closer to the expected if that were the case. But you can see the expected is 1.47, the actual is 1.27, and they're reliably winning. I think the Black Orcs could once in a while defeat a unit of hammers depending on the situation, but that's basically how I got this information. I've tested against a number of things, and the formula is pretty reliable. It breaks down when you have things like bonus versus large or bonus versus infantry and stuff like that, but it's basically pretty reliable. And when I did the Iron Breakers, that's when I found their expected kill ratio versus the Black Orcs should be 1.62, but their actual kill ratio is only 1.092. And again, I'm not testing them with their satchel charges because I'm just basically looking at their combat stats, so I'm testing them in melee to see how they perform in that case. To give a relative comparison, I ran them up. I did some testing with Black Orcs against Chosen, because Chosen are also a very defensive unit, just like the Iron Breakers, to see how they would do with their kill ratio. So if you look here, the Chosen, just the regular Chosen, their expected kill ratio is 2.60, and versus the Black Orcs it was 2.18. So they won all of their battles pretty convincingly, and they generally kept up with the formula. So that's why I know that there's something wrong with this, with the numbers, and it comes in the melee animation, and I explained how that operates in my second combat analysis video a little bit more clearly, but I wanted to show that this actual information comes from a foundation of within the numbers, within the data. And I realize that's not always the final judge of how two units will operate against each other, and there are some fun little tricks you can find in taking advantage of how the data interacts to find the best units. And I'm going to be doing a lot of that analysis in my Essential Units series once I get into the melee units, etc., etc. But what you can see based on this information is that in these cases, the formulas tend to operate pretty closely to what you would expect. You know, a 1.47 here's a kill ratio, but when it comes to the Ironbreaker, it's 1.62, and you can go and look down, and not all of these function perfectly. I mean, they get kind of out of whack when you have large units and stuff like that. But if we go down to the Chosen, again, here's our 2.60, and you can see that that generally is reliable. Now, these can get out of whack based on quite a few different things, but I definitely will go over that in further combat analysis videos. Anyways, this is intended to be a short video, just a quick supplement to my first video explaining where this information is coming from and why I think that the Ironbreakers are not functioning according to how I think they should, and I think according to how they were intended to function with that high melee defense of 68 and all these types of things. And that kind of leads into what I would think would fix them. Plus, you know, of course, I can't claim any lack of bias when it comes to the dwarves, and I want my beloved dwarves to be completely awesome, which they aren't right now. You know, it's been said over and over that dwarves are very weak as a faction. They might be good as a surprise in competitive play, but as it stands right now, they just don't have the tools to operate. And there's I think a lot of strong ways to look at making them better, with giving them more tools to deal with magic, more tools to deal with cavalry, and things like that. But I'm looking at just this specific case of the Ironbreaker and how I think in this vacuum of the unit versus its stats, how it could be improved to operate up to how I think they should, and to be in line with the tabletop game, which is, I think, you know, as close as we can get to that, you know, the better in most cases. I know that the game can't always function in that manner, but I would definitely like to see it function more in that manner, closer to the tabletop where it's possible. And in this case, I think it is possible. Anyways, hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you soon.